Hello and welcome to Let's Talk Sports. I am Ralph LaBella.
And I'm Ron Sen, back despite popular demand. We like to lead off with our Sports and Society segment, and we've got a couple items this week. Number one, Ray Rice of the Baltimore Ravens. Rice captured on video with the aftermath of assaulting his now wife, gets a 2-game suspension from the NFL, which the NFL vehemently defends, saying he didn't get punished heavily by the law. We think this is right.
Yeah, they talked about that, and it should have been at least 5 games, 5-6 games, something like he knocked her out, as a matter of fact. And it came back that she might have struck him first, doesn't matter. He's a football player, and he knocked her out. So I can't believe it wasn't at least 5 games. I figured 6. And it could have been more, but they got back together, and she asked them not to do anything, not to suspend them, and they came up with the 2 games.
Part of the NFL's rationalization was that he was a first offender, and I think that he has been reasonably active in community service, that sort of thing, in the Baltimore area, but that's still no defense. Even worse, however, is Rice getting a standing ovation at Baltimore Ravens training camp. What does that prove? What message does that send to young people, especially throughout the country?
You know, the way that, I don't know what people are thinking about. I mean, someone like him, he said it was the first time. It wasn't the first time. You don't knock someone out, I mean, the first time, do what he did. I mean, it's happened before. He's dominated her, you know that. I don't know what she's doing with him. I mean, what kind of female is she to marry him after that happens? I mean, that's ridiculous, and that happens all the time. I see it all the time.
Right, and domestic violence is certainly a serious problem in the United States. It touches every community, and everything we can do to condemn it and to assure that we minimize it and let people know that it's not acceptable under any circumstance is the only message that people should be hearing. Now, there's a lot of other things that went on, and we could talk a little bit about Stephen A. Smith. Smith, an ESPN broadcaster, made a comment on air that suggested that some women brought domestic violence upon themselves. We're not sure that that was his intent, and ultimately he got a 1-week suspension and gave a very heartfelt apology to both the listeners and to his family, and that certainly wasn't what he meant. But I think that what we see sometimes in both medicine and in the legal profession is it takes 2 to tango.
Well, you see it all the time, Ron. I see it in the court system every weekend. Every weekend I'm getting a call, you know, assault and battery domestic. Either it's a guy on a girl or a girl on a guy, or a guy on a guy or a girl on a girl. I mean, we're getting calls every weekend, and it really is a tough situation, because I got to decide whether I'm going to bail them or hold them. And my philosophy is anytime someone punches another, they're held without bail all weekend for court, because to me they're a danger. If it's a push, it's the first time, then you look at it different. But I mean, you can get arrested for just grabbing someone. But what people don't realize, Ron, and you see it, you're dealing a lot of times in a place like, you know, the big cities. You're seeing the situations where a girl or a guy, they're marrying someone knowing that they're not all there. You know, that they have anger problems or whatever. And a lot of situations I see is that, okay, the guy or the girl sees a picture of the guy or girl with another girl or a guy. You know, and I've seen a girl stab the guy over that, you know, on his phone, you know. And then, you know, guys, again, a lot of guys get arrested when they see pictures of their wife or girlfriend with another guy.
Well, we see the consequences of domestic violence with Jared Remy, the whole issue there. Years ago, Andre Rison, an outstanding receiver, his mansion got burned down by his girlfriend, his multi-million-dollar home. So, and close to us, obviously, is the whole Aaron Hernandez issue. You know, he's in jail probably for the rest of his life.
But what a lot of people don't realize, too, is people have problems. I mean, you got football players, Rice. I mean, he bangs heads every game he plays and practices. You know, the guy's probably not all there. I mean, if to strike a girl and knock her out, you know, he's not all there. And she knows he's not all there. So what does she do? Does she stay with him?
Well, it's a violent game played by violent men. We know that the new coach at the University of Texas has suspended multiple players and kicked several players off the team basically says that just because you have a scholarship doesn't entitle you to misbehave, sexual abuse of women, other unspecified violation of team rules, who knows what it is, drugs, alcohol, and being an athlete doesn't entitle you to special privileges such that you can avoid civil behavior.
But Ron, what people really don't understand, they don't think like we do and they do. People watching the show, that can rationalize things, have common sense. A lot of people you're dealing with, they don't have that. A lot of them aren't working. They're not, mentally, they're just not all there. I see it all the time. And then you're in a situation like that, and I think what Stephen A. Smith was trying to say, he was trying to talk about those situations where that person's not stable. But how many people do you see, girls or guys, with their mates, and they stick with them?
Well, and one of the nice things about coaching young people is you have a chance to influence people to do the right thing, to treat other people with respect and dignity, to make sure that you're treated with respect and dignity.
But Ron, they're from good families, and it's easier to deal with them than people that are struggling to see assault their whole life, seeing their father hit their mother or their mother hit their father. They're growing up like that. They're always in trouble. Those people, they're not stable people, and when you get in a situation like that, and again, I think that's what Stephen A. Smith was trying to talk about. And again, it's not, we see things different than a lot of other people, right. And that's a big problem.
And we can compare that with Stuart Scott at the ESPYs, battling cancer, really struggling, but giving a very noble address, being thankful for all the people that have supported him, especially his family, and telling people to hang in there and don't quit.
Yeah, that was I told you about that speech, and then you saw it. It was really a great speech. That was right there with Valvano's speech. Just a great speech, and I really feel good for him because he felt great. He had one of his daughters there, the other one was in college, sophomore in college, and his girlfriend was there, and really good guy. And I didn't know much about him. I just think he was pompous or whatever, watching him on TV. And that's the way he is, but to me, he's a great guy.
Right. Well, a lot of other things happen. Rory McIlroy won the British Open, and we talk sometimes about confidence coming from proven success. But Rory McIlroy's father put a bet that he'd win the British Open before he was 26 years old. That's confidence.
Oh yeah, and this was his last year. But he won today too,
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, he won, beat Garcia by 2 strokes. So he's a good guy. And he says the one thing he wanted after the British Open to stay consistent. So he says it's great coming back and winning this tournament. He says a tournament he loves, and next week's a big tournament. So.
And conversely, Tiger Woods, back from back surgery, had to drop out because his back flared up. And back problems can be really tough to manage, especially when you have the strength that these players have, the force they generate on their back. So, it remains to be seen what Woods' future is.
How about Mickelson today? He shot a 62.
Wow.
He ended up 5 under. He had a tough start to the tournament, but that's great for him. I hope he keeps it going next week.
It's always about players or teams, and there was an arbitration issue with P.K. Subban. Apparently there was a lot of contentious discussion, didn't work out, and today Subban signed an 8-year contract with the Canadiens. So he'll still be around for Bruins fans to hate for a long time.
There's an argument that he's the best hockey player in the world right now. I look at him, I look at the way he plays against the Bruins. I'd take him over Crosby. I'd take him over him. Look at the way he plays against the Bruins.
Well, ultimately, we talk a lot about, to young players, how you make your team better. How you make the people around you better is what matters the most. And certainly, Subban, he's a difference maker for the Canadiens, at least against the Bruins. He just killed them on the power play.
How old is he, Ron?
25.
Oh, he's going to be great. He is going to be, I predict he's going to be I think he's the best hockey player in the world right now. But he's just going to get better and better, and he's ready to dominate this league.
And there's plenty to talk about the Red Sox, and we'll be getting into that in a lot of depth. But the theme for the Red Sox has to be robbing Peter to pay John Henry. Red Sox have cut back their salary dramatically. Boy, talk about salary dump. They were able to get rid of Stephen Drew, one of their big mistakes. We'll see what they do with Lester, Miller, Peavy, and John Lackey, who has a very low contract for next year, but I didn't think he was going to be playing for the Red Sox for $500,000.
No, I thought they would sign him though for 3 years. I thought they'd get Lackey. I mean, you gave up a top pitcher, a pitcher who loves to compete, loves to pitch in the playoffs and the World Series. You know, you gave him up just about, to me, if Craig comes back to where he was 2 years ago and last year, this year he was playing terrible after getting hurt. But if he can come back and hit 300, again, he hit that in the National League. Kelly, I'm not sure if Kelly's just another, he's like Workman and the rest of them. I don't even think he's as good as Workman, so.
Well, Dan Shaughnessy, who can be controversial at times, called the Red Sox Kansas City on the Charles now. So you wonder if the Red Sox are going to try to go really cheap, or whether they're going to package a bunch of their prospects together and see if they can get more.
Well, they're going to try to get Stanton, Suspicious, and they're saying Middlebrooks, and maybe a couple of other young players with, you know, hopefully, but Miami may give up Stanton, but word is that they're going to give the money to Stanton.
Right. I think Miami wants to build around Stanton, which makes total sense. He's got a home down there. Apparently, he really likes it down there. What's not to like?
You got him and you got Saltalamacchia. What else do you want?
There you go.
Saltalamacchia is down to 230 now.
Now, as for something else controversial, there's a bid for the Summer Olympics in Boston. Now,
forget about
it's
it.
a developer. Can't imagine there's any self-interest in that. Who wants that? And we consider the nightmarish traffic that already exists, the facilities which are non-existent to host a package of tens of thousands of fans from around the world. I just don't see it.
Did we had the World Cup soccer here, right? Some of the matches were here.
I think they had
some in New York.
Right. That's a different deal.
Yeah,
though.
it is.
So I think that's a total disaster.
Oh, we'll never get it. I mean, come on, Boston.
No, I think that it may be that the NBA draft that they're, not the NBA, NFL draft that they're talking about rotating what cities that's in. That's a one-day deal or a 3-day deal. It's not an event that's going to bring hundreds of thousands of people here.
No, I mean, Boston's just not the perfect place for any of these things. I mean, I heard this, with all the hotels we have, there's still not enough rooms to have something big like that. So who knows?
Yeah, I can't, even, you know, if you thought about having, I suppose they could probably have the Final Four here someday if they wanted to, but, you know, I think most of the time they prefer to have it in a city that's a little bit better weather-wise. Although they've had it in Indianapolis, St. Louis, but places like San Antonio make a lot more sense in March.
Yeah, I'd forget about Boston. I don't even know why he made the pitch. I mean, imagine him getting it. You know, he'd want it. Then if they said, yeah, you have it, you know, it's like, God, what are we going to do now?
Well, the same thing. They played the Super Bowl in New York this year. And obviously the Krauts would love to have the Super Bowl in Foxborough, but do you really want to go to a Super Bowl in New England? You know, if somebody said to me, I'll give you you can have the ticket and you can go to the Super Bowl in Miami or Southern California, Arizona, or Detroit, I'd say, what are you crazy?
Did you see the Hall of Fame speeches yesterday?
I read a little bit about him, but I didn't see him.
You see Strahan?
No, what did he have to say?
Oh, he made me sick. Oh, he downed the Patriots big time about when they won the Super Bowl and they beat the Patriots. He says we smothered Brady. You know, we talked about that. He really knocked the Patriots. And that's the same guy who was sucking wind on the last drive the Patriots had when they scored the touchdown to go ahead. Because the Patriots scored a touchdown before the Giants came back to score on that Hail Mary pass. But they were all on the sideline. The 3 of the starters on the defensive line were on the sideline for that last drive. And the person I blame for that is Belichick.
Well, there's an old saying that winners get to write history. And I guess that's true for him.
But I mean, he shouldn't be bragging too much because, again, he was on the sideline when the Patriots took the lead.
Well, that also brings up a separate issue about the relative value of coaches compared to the team's best player in different sports. So, for example, if you could have the best manager in baseball, I'm not really sure who that is, versus the top player on your team, would you, if you're the Red Sox, would you rather have the best manager you can imagine, I don't care, in history, or would you rather have Mike Trout?
I'd take Mike Trout because he's going to make you one of the best managers in history.
Of course, and that's, talent always helps. Now, Ted Johnson was arguing he'd much rather have a top coach, Belichick, one of the Harbaughs, versus or Sean Payton versus the top player. He says, look at what happened when Sean Payton was out for a year. Team fell apart. They still had the players.
But look at, I mean, they make me laugh about the great coaches are great because of the players. I mean, especially, I mean, you look at Belichick. I mean, anybody who says Belichick's a great coach is an idiot, as far as I'm concerned. Where is he a great coach? He's had the best quarterback in the history of football on his team for 13 years, or 14 years now. He's had the best quarterback. He's got the worst defense in football 6 out of the last 8 years. They just went over the totals on first downs and pass completions. He's supposed to be a defensive genius. I mean, how's he getting away with this run? The best quarterback, the best offense in football because of him.
I know the defense is, they score a lot of points, so the other team has the ball a lot. They're going to get more possessions, more opportunities to get first downs. But the Patriots are really struggling. Third down conversions, especially defensively third down conversions.
But if anybody really look at the Patriots games over the years, Patriots go down, score a touchdown, right? They're sitting on a bench for like 8 minutes while the other team's driving down the field, even if they kick a field goal or score a touchdown.
The classic example was the AFC Championship game against the Colts, where they were 4th and 2 on the 29, and they had to go for it because he knew that the defense couldn't stop Peyton Manning if they punted. So, I mean, it was
and they
what
got
it was.
the first down there too, and the ref blew it. The pass to Falk, when he bobbled it, and the ref was blinded. But then again, I mean, just think about it. I mean, they say he's the best coach in football. He's had the worst defenses, and he's supposed to be a genius. He's got the best quarterback in football. The last 10 years, they're losing all these big games. Why? Because, number one, the defense cannot control the offense. Even when like Brady goes down, he's feeling great. They score a touchdown. They may score another touchdown. They're like 14-3. Then he's sitting on the bench for like 8 minutes while his defense can't hold the other team.
You know, I think it would be really reasonable to say it's hard to judge the effectiveness of a coach because you can't say, well, if the Patriots had this coach, then they would have done that much better. What we can say is Belichick is both the coach and the de facto general manager, so he picks the players, whereas some organizations have those responsibilities separated. You know, and I don't know, it's a pretty big job for the coach to do both.
But Ron, just think about it. Can you actually say he's a great coach after looking at the defense the way it's been the last 10 years?
At one point he was, but in the last, they've had 2 other appearances in the Super Bowl. I mean, it's great to say they've been to the AFC Championship 3 years in a row, but eventually it's all about, in football, it's about winning the big game, not just getting to the championship game.
Yeah, I just look at it, and I've seen him making mistakes over the years, and he's lucked out at times, and he hasn't lucked out at times. He's had bad breaks, especially those 2 games against the Giants. They should have had 2 titles. Giants lucked out in both of those games. But I've seen him make mistakes, Ron, where he doesn't call a timeout to save time.
I think Jaworski wrote a book, something like the 7 greatest games in NFL history, and he talked about the Patriots defeating the Rams. And he said, for example, what the Patriots did that day was one of the landmark coaching jobs in the history of football. And he used an example like back when the Patriots lost to the Chargers in 1953, I think it was Don Coryell was the coach. He said same thing with San Diego. What they did was so innovative that that's a game changer in the history of football. But that's one game. It wasn't sustained over the course of, a whole decade.
Well, you look back then when they won those Super Bowls, the defenses were really good. I mean, he was coaching the team then. Fine, he had real good players. That's what we talk about. If you have great players, it makes it a lot easier. Well, he's had Brady all these years. They have to be competitive with Brady quarterback. And your offense is good. They've had great offenses with terrible ends.
Right.
Because he understands the game, Ron.
We'll be right back. Welcome back. We love high school sports. We coach youth sports, probably never be coaching high school sports. But there's a lot of things we enjoy about high school sports, but there are a lot of areas that there's room for improvement too. I think both of us really enjoy high school basketball tremendously. And it's not only seeing successful teams, but seeing teams that play hard, develop, and improve. Used a word today at practice, kaizen. It's a Japanese word, and it means constant improvement of quality. And when you're seeing some really terrific teams improve throughout the season, become more and more competitive, and especially get deep into the postseason, that's really exciting.
Yeah, well, you know, we've always liked high school basketball and volleyball, and why? Because our daughters are involved.
Sure.
You know, that's how we got started with it. And you know, in basketball, Dave Brady was coaching back there when it started, and he had a lot of success. And in volleyball, of course, Coach Jelly has had powerhouses for years, and it's been a lot of fun watching both of the programs compete. But you know, and we just grew up loving basketball, and then watching our kids play, and then getting involved with the coaching. And you know, I think now we're involved in it because we've coached some of the girls that are on the high school teams now, and then we still coach in youth. But talking about, you compare high school basketball now, we just did hockey. We did the girls' hockey all year. And you know, I look at it and I compare it and I say to myself, you know, to be honest, to be a real good hockey player, you have to be more talented as an athlete than a basketball player. You have to put more time in. I know, and we know how much time you have to put in basketball compared to sports like volleyball.
Well, the other thing is, when you see athletes compete, you see a tiny tip of the iceberg of what they do to prepare their bodies, to all the tournaments they go to in the off season, the camps, the training sessions with personal trainers, etc. So the actual games that you're seeing during a high school season or postseason are just, you know, minimal relative to all the activity that goes on in the background.
Right. Now, people don't understand, because it was the first year that the Melrose girls hockey team was independent. People in Melrose, and even the kids in school, we didn't see many of them at their games, but they're the most talented team up in Melrose High School, the girls hockey team. They're going to have tremendous success in the years to come. They've got those 8th graders who are going to be freshmen next year. They have a superstar goalie who's going to be an 8th grader. I don't know if she's going to get the waiver. They've got solid players above those girls. And I think girls high school hockey, which no one knows about. I mean, we've seen the games. We did the games. And it's a shame because there's so much talent on that team. And they'll see it in the future. They're going to see this team battling for state championships. I know they're going to in the next couple of years. But you compare that, and we look at that run we did, and then you have the football program, which has been tremendous in the last 5 years. But what's your favorite program? I mean, right now, of course, basketball and volleyball was over the years has been, but right now.
We've been closest to basketball, obviously, you know, and for example, some of the girls that are in the high school now who may get an opportunity to play. Now, with us, they were playing, you know, one year they played 84 games in different seasons, spring, summer, fall basketball, winter basketball. Now, when you say an athlete hasn't made enough of a commitment, well, I don't know what more than these girls could do. They go to practice a couple days a week. Some of them go to the Y or other personal training sessions, and they played a lot of basketball. They've made a lot of sacrifices. Their parents have made a lot of sacrifices. So it's hard to me to say that a player who's 2 or 3 years older has done more than another player, and I think they have to be judged independently, not by age.
Yeah, I mean, you're seeing that now. They're trying to be fair. I know the athletic director and the coaches are trying to be fair to the upperclassmen, you know, and by being fair to them, some of the younger girls, you can see their attitudes starting to change. They're not as excited about basketball as they were when they were going up there, and you just see that. And the coaches, the head coach of the varsity team is huge in that. She's got to get I told you, she has to have everybody involved. They all have to feel a part of the team. And then when they compete in the summertime together, they compete in the fall, and then when they try out for the team, everybody should be given a fair shake. And don't just put, my big thing is, don't just put a girl in the varsity because, you know, if she doesn't deserve it, because she might be a sophomore or junior and you want to put her up there.
Well, you talk about the progression, And it's essential that a young player, whether it's lacrosse or any other sport, have the ability to keep developing. You know, you see some players. I remember there was a player I played baseball with as a kid, as a little league player, 11, 12, phenomenal. He was probably 5'9", 5'10", very strong, had a home run every game. He never got any bigger. He never got any better. I don't think he even ended up playing varsity baseball, because it wasn't that he didn't work at it, his skill set didn't grow as much as the other players around him did. You know, and I don't know how frustrating that might have been for him at the time, but you have other players who may not have been an impact player as a youth player, but they come along, they keep working, they grow, they develop athletically, they understand the game, and they're a player who really can contribute.
Right, and I think the best system is the hockey programs, because the high school coaches, they don't have to worry about the kids playing. I mean, these kids, these 8 graders from last year team, and even more 8 graders that didn't make the varsity team, they're working out in the youth sports. They're still working out. They won the state championship after their high school season.
Right. Well, the other issue is that you have to be able to maintain and recruit the players that you have who are potentially going to be sought after by private schools, prep schools, Catholic schools, whatever schools, who rely on basically poaching your talent. And a lot of Melrose girls have gone to other programs for whatever reason and enjoyed tremendous success there. And if Melrose had those players playing on their teams, they would have been that much more successful.
Right, and you look at, I mean, the programs I look at the football program. I mean, when your kids playing football, you don't have to worry about the program. They're going to get very good coaching. You know, Coach Morris really, his teams are well prepared every game. They work hard in the off season. Their goal is to be, you know, one of the best teams. And again, the last 5 years, the program's been tremendous. I mean, they're not second to anyone, that program.
I think what coaches fear the most isn't losing players, it's players succumbing to temptations that will get them into trouble. Alcohol or drugs, being in the wrong place at the wrong time. All the good coaches review the rules with the players and the families, the parents, and so forth, but some of the players still elect to get off the track.
When you have great captains, though, especially in football, when you have great captains, those kids listen to the captains. You had Mercer and DeRaphael, and I bet no one was going to, you know, do anything crazy with those two as captains. And throughout the years, I've seen a lot of the great captains that football team has had. And then you go to the basketball program, the great captains they had when your daughters were there as captains. I mean, those girls looked up to them. And that is a key. To me, the captains are very, very important. And you look at the volleyball program, I mean, to me, I mean, the coaches are number one, but those captains are huge.
Well, it's very important, and it's very difficult, because there's always a few kids who are tempted to go off and do the wrong thing, thinking they can get away with it. You know, and you know, obviously what happened last year in North Andover with their volleyball program turned into a national story, and in the end, the player lied. His
parent too.
You know, and you know, it just was a total fiasco.
And then you get that Lexington thing with the Lexington athletic director over there. I mean, it's just, you know, it's just a problem. You know, the thing that really bothers me about high school sports is that, you know, you've got to worry about the coaches.
Well, I
you
think
know, your daughter or your son works extremely hard, and then they get up there and they're not treated properly.
Well, I think John Calipari's book, Players First, he goes over in exhaustive detail what he does and what he recommends going forward to change the sport, saying, you know, give the players a loan that would get waived if the player graduates. Give the player access to buying insurance as a loan. Give the players the right to eat decently so they're not hungry, because he said basketball players, they burn 5,000 or 6,000 calories a day. They just don't have access to enough food. They don't have any extra spending money.
They don't have access to food?
If they have practice at certain times and they don't get to the dining hall, you can't give the kid a special meal. You can't give them a voucher to go for extra food, that kind of thing. So when Shabazz Napier was talking about being hungry a lot of nights at UConn. He was just saying the facts.
Well, I blame the coaching staff for that then. I mean,
Well,
they're not, you got to make sure they're eating properly.
Well, he says if
Have them deliver the food to the practices.
he said if the players got a reasonable stipend, he's not saying that every sport this involves and every player should be getting thousands of dollars a month. He says $2,000 or $3,000 a year would allow the kids not to be hungry, and it would potentially keep them in school longer. So he advocates for having the players. He said if you go to school the summer before you start college, the summer after your freshman year, and the summer after your second year, and you go to school for the 2 years, you have 3 years of credits. So he said there's a great chance that you'll be able to graduate because you're well on the way to doing it. And he says he's had a very good success for the players who've actually stayed a while, saying, I enjoy the experience here, I enjoy the education, and they've done very good with very well with their academic performance record at Kentucky. Even though he says I have a bad reputation, that's because people don't always look at all the facts. He also advocates for, when the NCAA does investigations, he said the program being investigated it all should be redacted and blinded so the investigation occurs without the names of the individuals involved. And he said because some programs skate, they get off free no matter what they do, and other programs like his get intense scrutiny.
Yeah, and how do these coaches know what the players are doing, selling rings or whatever? I mean, they don't know what they're doing.
Well,
and then the team. I mean, it's just a bad situation. I mean, look what what happened with him.
Right. Well, a lot of the programs have compliance officers, but who knows what they're actually able to do.
But let me ask you something. Why are some sports, like you see soccer is big in high school, but when it becomes pro soccer, it's not as big. You see other sports.
Well, I think it's star-driven, and the stars in the United States are not at the same level as the international stars. They haven't learned how to bite people and stuff like that.
Look at lacrosse now. A lot of kids are playing lacrosse and not playing baseball. But you look at a lacrosse match, right? The Cannons playing pro lacrosse. They get 6,000 people there. At Fenway Park, they're getting 30,000 every game, more than 30,000. Yankee Stadium, they had 50-some thousand the other day, and they're playing 162 games. How many lacrosse matches are there? So when people say lacrosse is getting popular and it's starting to take a bite on baseball, they're wrong. The people that are playing lacrosse, most of them can't handle baseball.
Well, if the quality
it's a tougher game.
If the quality of the play in Major League Soccer were at the same level in the English Premier League or the Italian League or the Bundesliga, I guess there'd probably be a lot more interest in the U.S., but it's not. It's not the same.
But you've seen lacrosse. I've watched lacrosse, right? I mean, we did the lacrosse. I did some of the lacrosse games. I mean, there's no situation in lacrosse. There's not one situation that can compete with someone pitching a game of baseball. I mean, you talk about high school lacrosse, all right, and high school baseball. You got a guy on that mound, there's no better feeling than pitching. And there's no, in catching, and then, batting, getting up to bat against a pitcher. You're never in that type of a situation in lacrosse.
You can be in an 8-0 game, but the guy's working on a no-hitter in the ninth inning. It's an exciting game, even though it's 8-0.
It's never going to take over baseball. It's not going to come close. These younger kids are playing it. They say they want to run more and stuff like that. But you need more talent to play baseball than you do to play lacrosse. And you need more talent to play hockey and basketball than you need to play volleyball. That's why kids love lacrosse. Kids love volleyball. Plus, you have the best coach around in Coach Kelly, which has made this program. But when you look at it, why do kids, my daughter loved volleyball over basketball? Because it's an easy game to get great at.
Well, the number of skills that are involved are a lot smaller. I mean, you have to be able to set, you have to be able to pass, you have to be able to hit, you need to be able to dig. But that's just a finite skill set, whereas a sport like basketball, there's an infinite number of things that you need to learn how to do and an infinite number of situations that you're in.
Well, let me ask you a question, right? Your two daughters, as good as they were in basketball, were better volleyball players. If you compared it, they were very good in basketball, they were all league, they were all state in volleyball. How much time did they put in volleyball compared to basketball?
They were better in volleyball for this area. If you said would they have been able to have a chance to play at a college volleyball versus college basketball? They would have been more competitive playing college basketball than college volleyball, in my opinion.
Well, yeah, but college basketball has Division I, Division II, Division III. They would have been fine in Division II.
Yeah.
They would have been fine. They would have been fine at Tufts, teams like that.
Yeah, that's Division III. Well, you're right.
III.
You're right.
So, but you compare that. I mean,
very few athletes who come out of local areas are going to play Division I anything. I mean, realistically, it's like if you go to the Patriots game and you're on the sidelines, you have a chance to walk around. You look at those guys; they do not look like normal people. They're much bigger physically. They're much stronger. I mean, they just don't even look like the same species as most of us.
Right, but what I'm trying to say is, I mean, don't give me these people that are saying lacrosse now is, lacrosse is up and coming, lacrosse. It's a good sport,
Right.
but don't compare it to baseball. Baseball, you need way more talent. There's way more tougher situations in baseball. Hitting a baseball is tougher than anything you do in lacrosse. Pitching a baseball to a catcher and catcher calling the game, you're in those situations. You're never going to be in those situations in lacrosse.
Well,
I've watched pro lacrosse, and the game is not fast. People think it's fast game. The higher you get up, it slows down.
Well, when you're into the 7th game of the World Series and there's a man on 2nd and 3rd with 2 outs in the 9th inning and you're leading by a run, and you have to either get the guy out or they drive in the winning runs. Those kind of situations, to me, don't come up with other sports to the same degree.
But when you're talking about that, then I look at a sport like field hockey. What are they doing? I think, and it really bothers me, they put a field hockey game on TV without an announcer. So I'm telling you, Ron, you didn't see it. I mean, anybody who saw that thing, they would have said, what the heck is this? They would never, ever go to a field hockey game after watching that. What is wrong with these people? If you're going to put a game on TV, get an announcer that knows the game so when we're watching it, they can explain what's happening. All they did is they had the camera right on the player, and this is all you're seeing. Girls leaning over, hitting the ball. It's going like 6 feet. Someone else is running after the ball. I mean, I don't know what people are thinking about, Ron. I mean, you're trying to get people involved in field hockey, and bad enough that this program, most of the girls are playing soccer and volleyball.
Well, if you're an announcer, you want to be able to tell a story. You want to tell something so that you're educating the audience and also relaying the facts as you see them. If your team is losing 7-0 in a field hockey game, hopefully you'd be able to describe why the other team is being successful, not necessarily blaming your team, but what is the team that's winning doing that's allowing them to have success?
Yeah, but now I put the TV on, I'm watching it, right? So I'm saying, if they had an announcer to tell me what they're doing, maybe I'd get into it. I'd say, okay, and they had better camera work. The camera work was terrible. But anybody who watched it then, they would never go to a field hockey game.
There was a story in the paper this week that Meg Shea is moved up from UNH. She's going to be an assistant coach at Columbia Division I.
I thought she's varsity. I thought she's head coach. No, assistant?
No, she's going to be a lead assistant coach at
I
Columbia.
remember her.
Right, so she's a terrific field hockey player. But, that isn't going to translate into Melrose being a dominant field hockey town.
But, a lot of people, more people than I thought, watch the games on TV. Like I talk to people, a lot of people, they watch the girls' hockey team. They know about them now. They really enjoyed it. They love the football games on TV, And then you have the basketball teams, the girls' team, because of too much constructive criticism, which there wasn't that much, but mostly me. You were doing the games with me. Now they don't want the girls' games on because they think because the girls aren't working hard enough, and you say that, parents are getting upset. But all those years when they had the teams that played hard and you knew they were working hard, they loved the games on TV. So you see players out there that don't even want to be out there, and you mention it. What are you supposed to say when you're losing by 40 points and not working hard enough, and the coaches don't even care? What are you supposed to say? Well, they had a great game. The parents can't even take. Most of the parents can't even take the constructive criticism. They get upset about it. So before you know it, their games, no one's announcing their games. They're not on TV. And now they're watching the girls' hockey team, which was the best thing to happen to the program. And the girls' hockey program is going to be the best one in the school.
Unfortunately, the trickle-down effect is lower attendance at the games, and then that's lower excitement, and then it all falls apart. We'll be right back.
Athletic Evolution is excited to have Visionary Basketball Group inside of our facility. Basketball is something that we've been heavily involved with in terms of, producing elite level high school and college basketball players throughout the years here. But now we're excited to actually have both Mass Evolution and Visionary Basketball Group as partners in our Athletic Evolution facility, and specifically right next door in the basketball courts and the offices there. What this means is Athletic Evolution wants to be the first stop for all basketball training with the partnership with VBG here. And one of the things that allows us to include this basketball training and take it up kind of another notch is the addition of our Vertimax trainer systems here. We currently have 3 of them, which allows us to have about as many as 12 athletes going at one time. And one of the main benefits of the Vertimax is it allows athletes to train both with sport-specific movements in all ranges of motion, in all planes, and also train fast. It's very important to distinguish the difference between doing a strength-oriented exercise and building strength and muscle mass, and then transitioning or translating that strength and that muscle gain into power. What power means is the ability for us to necessarily move fast. So in relation to basketball, we want to jump higher, we want to react quicker, we want to move faster, we want to be faster, and the Vertimax allows us to do that. It's a constant resistance system, so that when we're either doing vertical jumps, we're doing basketball-specific movements, whether it's low post moves, going for a rebound, mimicking a shot, doing defensive slides on the Vertimax. We're able to do it at a fast speed to mimic something that the athletes are going to see on the court. But we're able to apply resistance so that now we can translate into gains in these areas. Athletes can see gains in their vertical jump, see gains in their first step quickness, see gains in the elevation of their shot, see gains in terms of being able to stay with a defender, whether it's in their defensive slide, reacting, mirror drill, staying in front of them. The Vertimax is used nationwide at some of the elite basketball programs from Louisville to Indiana. And there's a reason that these high-level programs use this is because Vertimax has a proven track record, both with basketball players, both with producing power at the same time. So we want to take this Vertimax training and incorporate that into the Visionary Basketball Group athletes that we're going to see in here, hopefully in the near future, and currently some of them training with us right now. If you would like to get on a Vertimax and see what it's all about, you can either contact the main desk at Athletic Evolution and schedule a free trial with us. We want our athletes to be able to get on the Vertimax and actually experience it before you actually want to purchase any of the packages. And we can incorporate this Vertimax either into our basketball-specific group training, individual Vertimax training, or as a component in a special personal training program catered to each individual. So for more information, please contact the front desk. We'd be happy to get you in here for a trial, and we'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Welcome back. I've given Ralph his medicine. He'll be okay. We'll talk about the Patriots. They have joint practices with the Washington Redskins, if that's what their name still is this week. And they'll be starting their first exhibition game on Thursday night. Can't get better than that, especially since baseball season's over.
You know what I pray for though, Ron? I pray they don't get any big injuries, because they have a team now that can win the whole thing. I think if they stay healthy, it's going to be them in San Francisco in the Super Bowl.
Well, if you look at the line, the defensive line has Will Fork and Kelly back. They've got Chandler Jones, who's third-year player, should have a lot more experience. Ninkovich, experienced player. They've got some other players that they've signed. They've got a strong linebacking crew with Mayo back, Hightower, Collins. Everybody's talking about how good Collins is. And then they've got a smothering secondary. Now, Browner's going to be out for 4 games. Now, one issue is going to be how they call the games. The NFL And some people argue that this is because of fantasy football is trying to change the rules so that it's turning into touch football in the secondary. Now, obviously, everybody likes scoring, but I don't like it when there's no defense either.
Well, look at that hit on Gronkowski last year. I mean, you talk about a dirty hit. The guy went right at his knees and blindsided him.
Well, I think what you're going to see in the future someday is you're going to see uniforms that are different colors between the shoulders and the knees. And those are going to be the striking areas that you're allowed to hit the players.
But in that situation with Gronkowski, right, that should definitely be illegal. I mean, you can't go at a quarterback's knees, all right,
Right.
because he's not protected. Well, in that situation, you're coming from the side. Gronkowski just catches him out of the corner of the eye,
Right.
didn't have a chance to move, and he buries him at the knees. Let him hit him at the ribs. Let him take him out there. He had the angle on him. He could have drilled him there. You talk about rule changes. There's one right there.
Well, certainly you'd think that they'd want to protect the star players. They protect all the players, but especially they're interested in the star players. Nobody wants to see the Bradys, the Mannings, the Brees out for the season because that basically ends the season for the team.
Right. I mean, that's the key. If they stay reasonably healthy, this team, it could be the strongest team they've had since back when they won the Super Bowls. I mean, they definitely could beat Denver, and I think they could beat teams like Seattle and San Fran with this defense. Then you got Brady at quarterback. He's got a lot of weapons now.
Well, as great as Peyton Manning was, certainly Seattle totally neutralized him. You heard, I think it was at the White House Correspondents' Dinner, where somebody talked about Peyton Manning not being there because he could only move 3 or 4 yards at a time because they had some of the Seattle defensive backs.
But you look at this, right? You look at this year now. They come in. Any team that comes in with a passing attack with those defensive backs the Patriots have now. I mean, you look at Ryan. They're saying Ryan's been unbelievable too. With McCourty, Ryan back there, Brown, and when he gets back after 4 games, Revis. The guy they got to get rid of is what's his name, Arrington. I hope he's not covering the slot receiver anymore. Put Ryan on the slot receiver.
Well, it'll be interesting. Arrington's got a pretty big contract.
$4 million, isn't it?
Right. So how that works out. Same with, is it Connolly who's got it? $4 million, $3 million.
Now, they had the rating on him. He was rated 70-something in the league as an offensive lineman. Now they got this 3 young offensive linemen.
Right.
You might say, and Cannon may knock him out. If Vollmer's healthy and Solder's healthy.
Well, Stork's been out hurt, so I don't know what his situation is.
Yeah.
But, in the NFL, it's always about if you can bring somebody in who's got somewhat similar talent and a much lower salary, the older guy is going to be gone.
The one guy I hope that's off. Well, how about that guy from Wisconsin, the running back? Is it White?
James
What's his name?
White, right? James White.
I mean, they're saying he's tremendous. I mean, he had over 4,000 yards with Wisconsin.
Well, we'll see when.
That could be a surprise. That could be a
Right.
steal.
I mean, there are
right there.
several Patriots running backs in the final year of their career. Ridley, with the contract with Ridley and Vereen.
Yeah.
So, Vereen's done a good job, but they're talking about this guy as a first down runner as well. We'll see. He's not that big.
But if they stay healthy, Ron, this could be an unbelievable year. I mean, when you have a great defense now with the offense.
Well, if pitching is 75% of the game, and the Red Sox have traded or otherwise gotten rid of 4 out of their 5 starters, have they really improved? Obviously, they weren't scoring any runs. They were 13th in the league in the American League in runs scored, and 13th in on-base slugging percentage. So you can't argue that it was inadequate pitching by itself. Certainly, the game's a combination of both run prevention and run generation, but it's not like the guys they got are, Hall of Fame players. Craig's a good player having a bad year. Cespedes is a very good player who has a low on-base percentage because he strikes out a lot. But, we'll see. There are too many guys who are kind of not been very productive. Pedroia hasn't been anything close to his normal self. He can't really drive the ball up the gaps anymore.
What did I tell you his biggest problem is for the last 2 years?
Well, I know you're saying he's standing
too far away from the
Cover
plate. He's reaching for too many pitches. That's where he's running into problems. He's reaching and leaning. He's got the short swing, right? He's got to get close to the plate. I'm telling you, he'd be powering the ball to left field more.
Well, that's why I don't know if he's hurt and he's afraid to get close to the plate because he might get hit in
His thumb.
Yeah, or his wrist.
But what do you do now? You got Craig. You got Holt. So if Craig plays, Holt's sitting for most likely.
Right.
You know, you're going to have Bradley in center or
Right. For most of his
Betts.
Right. For most of the year, Holt's been their best player. Ortiz has certainly, had a decent year. Not by comparison with his other years, but overall. But you really sort of jammed up your choices here. If you put Craig and Cespedes in the outfield, then what are you going to do with Nava, who's really hit the last few months at about a 330 pace, and
Victorino.
Yeah, Victorino.
He's got another year, $13 million.
Right, that's just dead money.
What is this? What do you, when you see all this, what does it tell you? Cespedes, you got Craig, you got Betts, you got Holt, you got Victorino, you got Bradley. What does it tell you? They're loading up to make a big deal for a pitcher. Or Stanton.
What it tells you is 4 quarters is not the same as $1. If you have a dollar bill out there, it's way better than a quarter. I think Bradley is serviceable as long as you have a really strong offense.
You're not going to give up on him. Are you going to put Betts in there ahead of him?
No.
No, Betts is a second baseman, isn't he? You see the play he made against the Yankees the other night?
Bradley is just phenomenal as an outfielder. I mean,
so what do you do? You're a general manager. What do you do with all those guys?
I stick with, I believe in the strength up the middle. I think Bogarts is going to be okay at short. He's not going to be, Gold Glove shortstop.
So you trade away that number 1 guy, the shortstop, and was it Marrero? You're going to trade Marrero away?
Yeah. Well, I don't know what
Put him in that deal
what is
for
the
a pitcher?
Deal? What is Middlebrooks? Middlebrooks has a chance to show that he can play or he can't play. I don't know. He certainly has power. He looks really vulnerable to off-speed stuff to me. Now, whether he can play through that, I don't know.
Would you trade Pedroia?
Boy, that's tough.
I mean, you got a lot of options there.
I know.
Pedroia is next to Jeter, is my favorite player.
I know. Pedroia is really the heart and soul of the team. But if he plays, if you believe in contemporary metrics, wins above replacement, he's their highest player. He's just about 3, which is a 5 is an all-star. A guy like Trout is 8 to 9. Trout is, the best player in the league.
But what I'm saying is, if you go to Miami and you're trying to get Stanton, and they say, okay, we'll give you Marrero, we'll give you Cespedes, we'll give you Craig, and they say, okay, we'll do it, and we'll give you one of our young pitchers. And the general manager says to you, okay, and if you give us Pedroia along with them, we'll make the deal. You got Betts who can play second base, who's going to be an outstanding, I think, major league player. Would you make the deal?
I don't know. Here's you
don't know?
Here's some statistics that I looked up through the years. Hopefully I got them right. Now the issue is, let's say you signed Lester for 5 years and $130 million. Let's say he took that money for whatever that's worth. What do you think you could expect to get in wins from him over that time? Now, interestingly enough, Lester was talked about in the Johan Santana deal when he was on the Twins years ago, and I looked up what some great pitchers of all time did between age 28 and age 33. So that's a 6-year period. For example, Roger Clemens, over that 6-year period, won 13.5 games per year. After that, he went to Toronto, won 20 games 2 years in a row, presumably on performance-enhancing drugs. Pedro Martinez, 6 years, won 15 games a year. Greg Maddux, 17 games a year. Bob Gibson, in a 4-man rotation, won 19 games a year, one of the highest totals in the modern era. From above age 30, age 31 on, Sandy Koufax and Don Drysdale together, 2 Hall of Fame pitchers, won a total of 19 games. Drysdale won 19 games. Koufax retired at age 30 because his arm gave out. Now, Santana, what happened to him? His 1 year with the Twins and 5 years with the Mets. He was going to be the future for the Red Sox, their Hall of Fame pitcher. Over that 6-year period, he won 61 games. So he averaged 10 years. So giving him $120 million would have been a disaster. So I see it, if Lester got a 5-year contract, it'd probably be reasonable at best to expect him to win 15 games a year. I mean, that's as many as Pedro, and he's not as good as Pedro. So obviously it depends on the run support, different things. But so I understand where the Red Sox are coming from, but what are you going to do with the money? I mean, are you just going to keep the money? Are you going to keep raising ticket prices every
well,
year?
They'll be going after, I mean, they're talking about Shields maybe. I think Shields would be a good deal, but I don't know how long. They're going to have to give him 5 years. He's older than Lester. But, I mean, they're talking about the pitcher from Philadelphia. Hamill.
But the problem is you got to pay somebody. And they're always, relative to what you think you're going to get.
Well, look what they gave Lackey.
Yeah, what you
Wasn't
think.
he making 18?
17 and a half. So what you think you're going to get, you're not going to get because the players get paid for past performance, not for what they're going to do.
Well, the Red Sox were doing a good job, in years prior with Lester and those guys, signing them to 3-4 year contracts early on. I mean, they gave Lester a pretty good contract,
right?
Early on.
Well, they had a 4-year deal with Buchholz, who's turned out to be a dud.
But I mean, they could be. I mean, you can't get upset. I mean, look at Ellsbury. I mean, is he worth $23 million? I mean, the Yankees are better with him, but he's not playing as a $22 million player.
His OPS is 750-ish. He's got 9 home runs, 49 RBIs. I mean, those guys are a dime a dozen growing up.
The problem the Red Sox have is that if they don't get a top-notch pitcher, they're going to be going up against teams next year, and they're going to have trouble because if they're not holding teams down, I mean, they're going to be going a lot of losing streaks.
Look, Toronto and Tampa just beat the heck out of them. And that's why they had to get out of the race because Toronto and Tampa handled them. Well, you get rid of your 2 best pitchers and all of a sudden you're going to handle Toronto and Tampa?
And, and then they're talking about they have more power now. Cespedes he's in a big pie. I mean, he won the home run derby, but he has 17 homers. I know Oakland's big pack. But, I mean, if he comes to Boston, his 250, 260, and his 30 homers, yeah, that'll be a plus. But, I mean, Nava last year hit over 300. His on-base percentage was unbelievable. But, guys like, I mean, when you look at it, he's playing ahead of Nava or Victorino.
Well, it's like this week, Felger said, what do you think you're going to get from Holt next year? He said, Holt next year is Daniel Nava this year, probably.
I don't know, though. Nava had a great swing last year, too. But Nava, they sent him down after his bad start.
Yeah, you really don't know what a guy is going to be able to do the next season because, give you an example. We're old. George Scott, 1967 American League Championship Red Sox, hits 303. The next year, 171. Dwight Evans, 1982, 293 I think he hit. 1983, I think he hit 238. So there's variability. Pedroia last year was pretty good, above average. This year, he's hitting 280 with no power.
Yeah, but
so
they're in an interesting situation here. I mean, I like the situation they're in. I like watching them now with the new players. And they have Betts played center field the other day. You like watching some of the younger players. Middlebrooks at third base.
Well, Betts is totally blocked now because and we'll see what they do.
But it's going to be interesting, though, Ron. They're going to make deals.
What I wouldn't be shocked in is if they traded Bogarts. I wouldn't be shocked if he has a strong second half of the season. Yes, because they're going to say we're going to sell high on Bogarts. I think that would be a total idiotic move by them. But they've made a lot of stupid moves this year.
Not Betts. You wouldn't want Betts at second, Marrero at shortstop, Bogarts at third.
Yeah, I would.
That would be unbelievable.
So,
and if they could get someone, and I really like Pedroia, but if they can package him and get someone like Stanton, package a few players.
I don't know if he has a no-trade deal or not.
But they're saying Miami is saying that he's one player they want.
Right.
So we'll see.
Well, I've enjoyed being with you tonight. I'm Ron Sen.
And I'm Ralph LaBella, and thank you for watching Let's Talk Sports.